there's a couple of people I've followed that will say, I buy a list. They blatantly say it. Sometimes I hire a company. Mm-hmm. They create a list of 1,000 for me or 10,000. There's no substance behind that. You know what I mean? It's just like you buy the list. Okay, then anyone can do that.
Did you get the messaging right? Did you get the targeting? Yeah. We hope. Did it get through all their spam filters? Did they see it? Yeah, I don't love it. It makes me nervous.
Oh, it makes me 100% nervous. When
exactly.
A couple of lists I had to send out to that were kind of. I mean, they were scraped, but I was like, if I ever got an email and someone said, "Take me off your list," I was like, oh my God, this is the end of the world.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm Dacia Coffey, and we have our digital master in the house, our digital ninja, Ramsey Sanchez. Thank you so much for coming back on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be back and talking about PPC and all things digital.
Yes, and we love when he's on because he has a tendency to have some of our most popular episodes, and I think this is going to be one of them. So today we are doing B2B leads explained. How and where should B2B leads come from for your organization? So I love this. This has really come up in a lot of our conversations recently because we see a lot of clients have a tendency to get tunnel vision around leads, where once we turn on Google AdWords for them, or once we start running digital leads, it's almost like that's the only thing that matters. And we want to back people up and go, yeah, it's important, but that's only one lead generation platform. And we want people thinking lead generation system, like how many lead sources can you build so that you have resilience in your marketing and you can really make sure that you have more control so that if an algorithm changes, it doesn't just wipe you out.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's 100% accurate, especially, I guess if you would call that maybe scope, where they think you're only tasked with one thing, especially here at the Blender. And really, I'm sort of in a position where I'm in charge of many things, not just PPC, but I can help with email, or I can help with digital and tracking and conversions and all these other stuff, which I guess, would fall under the umbrella of like digital marketing. But yeah, if you're trying to build let's say, scale your business really, and you think about the funnel and the system, how many other sources can you build to get to the number that you want?
Yeah.
Right? There's definitely a funnel for each different lead source, and you should have multiple of them if you really truly want to scale your business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well said. And it's interesting because we love to talk strategy because we know strategy and process is what sets you up for success. But typically people are like, okay, what are the best B2B lead sources? And we're actually going to tell you today. So we're going to give you guys over 15 different lead sources. While this list is not exhaustive, it's going to be pretty comprehensive, and it is going to give you a chance to figure out places where you can jump off and start to customize this. But again, we want you to be thinking lead generation system so that you have predictable and sustainable long-term revenue. Now, this is one of the other weird things, and this is actually one of the reasons why you were a perfect fit for our team when you joined a couple years ago, is because people get obsessed with lead generation. But ironically, people don't really want leads. They want revenue.
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking revenue system, growth system, then it allows us to have so many more tools in our arsenal and so many more different levers that we can pull in order to help businesses scale and be really aggressive, even inside of whatever resources or budget they have right now.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you and I were doing a lot of talking, trying to figure out, do we just list all the different sources, or how do we organize them? And so we came up with 3 different ways. So there are 3 different types of lead sources that we're going to talk to you about. One is leads that come from one-to-one source. One human being talking to another human being that results in a quality lead. Second is one to few. So how do we talk to a few people that result in a few more quality leads? And then, of course, what are the sectors that fall into one to many? So let's go ahead and start with one-to-one, because especially for small businesses, but every business brings in at least one-to-one lead source. So give us an example of some of the one-to-one lead sources.
Yeah, 100%. One of the first jobs I worked in was around training and programs, and we had to set up a lot of different workshops. And those who signed up for those workshops, like the individuals, the professionals, were there to network.
Yeah.
Like networking is amazing. A lot of times those workshops could be like 10 to 20 people. Sometimes they could be up to 100. But really, when you're in there, you're not going to be able to talk to that many people at a given time. So you're given like a few moments of time with certain individuals, but really you're probably going to connect with one the entire time.
Yep.
And that's your one-on-one right there is a networking event.
Yep, absolutely. Another, I'm going to combine two. So these are two different lead sources, but I'm going to kind of combine them, and we'll come back to it. Referrals, right? That's one-to-one. Somebody that loves you, knows you, and trusts you said, hey, you need to call these guys, and you're going to know them, love them, and trust them, right? So referrals are another one-to-one. And the second one that I was going to bring up, that's kind of a partner to that, is word of mouth. Because it's not always, hey, here's their card, here's their website, here's their email. But sometimes it's just in general conversation where, you know, oh my gosh, this guy over here uses them, and then this guy over here uses them. And so like that's slightly different than referral. And you don't have to be ginormous to get direct leads from word of mouth where they really can't remember where they heard about you, but it was probably in conversation or in some version of their network.
I love that. I mean, I even know somebody who's in like dent repair, and someone that they totally don't know, I would say, oh, did you get hit by the hailstorm? Like, this person, I really love them. They're going to do a good job for you. And you just have to rely on that word of mouth, and that person may call that person. Like, I might give them the number, but you just never know. Like, they might just still get a quote from me, but that's not going to be like a guaranteed deal from that. However, just depending on how you want to talk them up. But I definitely like that. The other one I would probably even put in the same category as far as having some kind of plan when you go into this thing is like a cold calling.
Yes.
At one of the companies I worked at before, the Blender, they had this whole system around calling trucking companies to help finance newer trucks for them. And, you know, there's certain platforms out there that potentially help in that area to kind of just give you a network of those companies. Potentially someone at some point you could have bought a list or something. It all comes down to your script, right?
Yes.
How many times you're hitting them? Is your sales team really going to be accurate with your information? Especially because if they're a new salesperson, I saw it time and time again, they were always hiring a new salesperson, relying that they knew the information just within the month of training, and then can they win that business? And the same thing for networking. It's like, are you going into that networking event with your 7 questions? Are you spending too much time? Are you going to the next person? Really, how many of those are you going to really be able to hit? And I know you're judged a lot on that as a salesperson. So
100%. And, there still are hunters out there. While cold calling is getting a lot harder, and good Lord, I used to have to do so much of it early in my career, it still does and can work, and that is its own lead source. And one that I would add to the back of that is account-based marketing. So when you take marketing support and you choreograph these really highly effective and well thought out, oftentimes creative outreach plans where sales is the tip of the spear, but marketing's doing all of this ecosystem and multi-channel outreach to go after whales. To go after, if you only land 1 or 2 of these accounts, it's an absolute game changer for your growth system, because then usually they can land and expand inside of those. And so account-based marketing is another very effective lead source, but it is one-to-one, and it's a totally different strategy. Okay, so let's move over into one to few. So for me, I'm going to go with one of my favorites. And so speaking is, a one to few. Now, okay, like to qualify few doesn't mean 3, right? Like few can mean 20 or 10 or 50 or 100, but you're thinking percentage of the audience that's likely to turn into a lead, right? Because, it's a cold introduction to you, but then very warm by the end, but you don't have a guarantee of exactly who's in the audience necessarily. But speaking, holy cow, fast speed to revenue, right? And so that is definitely one of my favorites, and people forget that it's a lead source that actually can be embellished and optimized and even chased after to hit multiple different levels of success and metrics that are important to scaling companies.
Yeah, businesses actually grow so much on those one-on-ones. Like most of the time, all of clients that come to us, right, the ABM, the cold calling, the networking, that's how they grew in the last 5, 10, 20 years to that point. And then, right, they're like, I'm this person that's of influence.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I think I can go onto a stage now and start talking at these events. And they can because they have the rapport, right? They have the credibility and the know-how and all the experience that got them to that point, and the rigor, all of it, right? And I think that's really important that that speaking event is, I think, has been one of the best things, for Blender, and you're also just really great at that too.
Well, I love it.
If you have not seen those speaking events, you need to watch them. We'll probably have some filmed ones coming soon.
Thank you. And I love that you mentioned that plateau, because it's not limited to small businesses, right? Like, hustle can get you so far. And you were talking about an example earlier where there was a really talented hunter who built his business and then realized, wow, I can teach my sales and outreach system to a large sales team. And so then he had a significantly large sales team. And we had another client, actually in commercial roofing, where they did the same thing. They hit $18 million. This is not a teeny small little business, right? Through sheer hustle and outstanding sales excellence. And then they couldn't break through. 6 years of we can't get to 20, we can't get to 20, we can't get to 20, right? And so that's exactly right, where that one-to-one can take you a long way, but what got you here isn't necessarily going to be. And that's a perfect example of, you need more lead sources. Like, that works. We don't want to kill it. We want to add to it.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Segue to the next opportunity, and that's more of a digital side of things, is the webinars.
Yeah.
Wow, there's so many of these professionals, all these different platforms, and where these professionals are constantly just in and out of, like LinkedIn or Facebook or something. Putting a webinar out there, it does matter on topic still, right? I mean, we've seen testing different topics that some engage more with others. If you try to maybe get too niche in the service that you're offering, you might have a lower lower conversion on that. But if it's a little bit broader, that it's still in that same sense. But that is a great place that you should potentially be going and being in front of those individuals, those work individuals, professionals, for webinars and topics and lengths and things like that. You definitely want to talk about that with a strategist.
And they are back. Like in 2025. It's crazy because 100%. We definitely saw that Zoom fatigue, 24 months post-COVID and all this other stuff where webinars really kind of fell off. And with good reason. I mean, we were just all worn out from being stuck behind a screen. But we are really seeing a lot of success. Now, you're right. You better be wickedly smart around what's the topic, what's the hook, But we are seeing a lot of success with B2B companies on webinars again, and I love that. It's people engaging and bringing their healthy skepticism, and really guiding the market to high value.
Yeah, and to reduce the skepticism is just be authentic. I mean, don't try to. There was a lot of platforms out there that was using like AI, robots, and chats and things, and I think that sort of, really just people were going away from the webinars because of that reason. It's just another. I mean, it's a great tactic. It is a sales tool, and that it's there for that reason, but for the right, in front of the right audience, so you do it the right way.
Absolutely. No, one I want you to speak to is that there's 2 different calls to action with webinars. Book a direct call with me, or a lot of webinars go straight into an email nurture. So I kind of want to separate webinars from email, because webinars can be a direct lead gen. And then there are webinars that are intended to take people into an email sequence, and then email becomes lead gen. And I feel like people don't think about email as a lead generator, and they should. As much as we all have email fatigue, email is not dead. It definitely drives leads as long as you're doing it well.
Yeah, I mean, I just signed up for a new email newsletter yesterday. I mean,
Yes.
there's always a newsletter or some kind of list that I like to be on around PPC. I've got to stay ahead of the curve. For a webinar, you definitely want to have some kind of email series to remind them of what they signed up for. You know, what's the pain points that they originally signed up for, and then sort of expand on that and get them a little more fired up about attending that webinar. And then, you know, that's also a segue into the one to many or one to few. Like you said, an example, an email list can be 10,000, 100,000, but if you're talking about webinar registrations, yeah, you're probably closer to that 10 to 20 that signed up.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that content is very strategic and targeted to them, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Now, it was interesting. You were telling me the other day about a question, you know, where somebody was like, well, how do I, you know, qualify B2B leads? And you went straight to email, and I was like, that's right. That's such a smart answer. So talk to us about why you said that, and how else do you qualify B2B leads?
Yes, yeah. So a lot of times, depending on the CRM that you're using, right? If you have HubSpot, for example, and you have different lead generation sources out there, right? You just went to a networking event, you got your ads running, you got the webinar going. A lot of times you're going to see these leads come in, and you're thinking like, where do they come from?
Yeah.
Hopefully your CRM helps you with that, right? You got the tracking link and stuff like that, but you can at least know by name, title, email. I hear this from you and from clients. Like, I could just look at this client and know that this person is probably who I need to be targeting to, target personas. So in that case, if your CRM system has that, right, if you're using HubSpot or Salesforce, go ahead and plug them into a list that says very qualified. Let's go ahead and do that. Some automations can do that for you, depending on, like, if you tag them a certain way, or if they came from a specific source with the tag already on their source. I know I'm getting technical, but these things are very possible. They're pretty straightforward, and you can definitely get pretty far with that. So if you got that list set up, then you can have certain little email automations set up for them that speaks to them specifically, especially based on title or revenue, company revenue size, or whatever it may be.
Exactly. And, you know, you bring up two important things, because you can qualify those B2B leads through the forms.
Yep.
You know, you can also sequence forms. And then if you have really great email sequences, what they're self-selecting on, what they find valuable. Now,
Yes.
Granted, you have to mature the email system, so this does not happen overnight. But
Right.
You're right. Number of touches can start to create high lead scores and buying intent, right? That can then be triggered to sales, or segmenting them into different content that helps you start realizing what they're interested in, why they're interested, how to really nurture them as far as possible until they do have sales urgency. So I absolutely love what you're saying there.
I mean, even now, like, if someone clicks the email, right? We know that someone's interested.
Yeah.
Like, don't just immediately just start sending them newsletters
No.
and random junk. Yeah, like, they're interested in that topic, put them in that list of things that they're interested. Put them in that demo outreach email. Hey, we saw that you were interested in something, would you like to? So, you know, there is all those different use cases available, and a lot of times it can be done by automation. It can be done manually. Someone who has eyes on that, especially if it's not that many leads, but you know that size of that lead could potentially turn into a large revenue. You know, it's worth that time.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, another one to few lead source that we have are trade shows, right? And so, you know, you're there in an environment where you have high likelihood, as long as you chose the show well, of interacting with the right people. And so, of course, that is supposed to be a lead generator. Now, I'm separating it from email, but people need to realize you need pre-show, during show, and post-show choreography in order to make these successful. And occasionally, these end up being an email lead source because it's a year out, 8 months out, you know, where the attribution, they turned into somebody, but the trade show got them following you. And then when they had a need, they came to you. But there should be some direct attribution to trade shows, like at least
Yeah.
a couple of leads. And so that's definitely another one of one to few.
Yeah, and another thing around shows, and I know we've talked about this, is, like, hey, there's trade shows happening at this time. Let's run some kind of campaign, paid search campaign around it. And or how many different trade shows are out there for, let's say, recruiting? Well, there's probably tons, right? Well, I want to target a lot of the trade shows that are around executive or something. There's probably a good few of those, and they have search volume behind their name. So you could run a campaign targeting that name around that time, and you may be able to capture some eyeballs from that, really,
So
some
smart.
impressions and clicks, and just kind of have that going. We've had the company that like taught and developed the like CIOs, if that was always focusing on the IT technical director type conferences, and there was so much volume around that, and
Yeah.
there's some leverage to that, right? So you can go into that trade show and someone says, oh, I thought I saw an ad around you, like around that on Facebook or on LinkedIn or something. It's like, oh yeah, that was on purpose. Yeah.
Ecosystem is so important, and it amplifies success. We see it time and again. Now, the last one I'm going to bring up, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but partners are another lead source, and you could potentially call this two, because for some, partners mean extended or distributed sales forces, independent salespeople, independent sales groups that sell for you. That could be a partner or a distributor. The other is if you are the sales group and you get leads as a reseller from the parent company. There are so many things that people can do to become the best partner. To become the most valued one, where the serendipity starts flowing back and forth, where you can maximize leads. And I think a lot of times people feel like, well, that's a separate channel. We have nothing. We can't really influence that. Oh, as a CMO, I totally disagree with that. But from a one to few, you're leveraging the power of other people's relationships, and those are lead sources. And pet peeve, I hate when people try to break marketing and sales apart, and act like, oh, that's a sales thing. No, it's a growth thing. Like, can we please grow up and talk about a growth system and not who gets credit for this, and really making sure that there's alignment. So I will get off of my soapbox that I will never, ever stop bitching about, but excuse my language, but.
Well, from a digital perspective, I know that another client that's in the like QuickBooks side of business, I think they have a partnership with a certain company that does like tax prepping, and they get like a certain amount of money that they can use for advertisement. So if you want more money from your partners, set up a campaign that does really well.
Yes.
And they're willing to reward you more money.
We have so many clients where their partners are paying for us.
All right.
Because it's worked. And they were like, hey, go do more of that. Like, whatever you guys just started doing, we'll throw some more money at you, because we just noticed
100%.
that now you're getting more volume and more success. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and transition over to lead sources that are one to many. And spotlight on Ramsey, because this means we're about to talk a lot about digital marketing as lead sources, but I want to start breaking it up into those are multiple lead sources, how to kind of think about them and that kind of thing. So where can I buy B2B leads? And we're going to tell you. So let's just go ahead and start with Google AdWords or optimizing paid search.
Yeah, so let's start with Google Ads. That's sort of my bread and butter right now. I really have been focusing on Google Ads because a lot of the last 5 years, 10 years, it's been around a lot longer than that. A lot of B2B companies, even B2C, are asking about ads. Like, what do we need to be doing? We hear about these AI ones, these search. Where should we start? And I've had a couple actually say we started with like ChatGPT and they kind of walk through your campaign. But then when I looked at the campaign, I just thought like, I don't know if Chat told you to set that up, but that's not good. There's certain best practices around Google and using search. I would say absolutely search. with the highest intent. Google search ads are probably the best ads you can start with when you're planning to get in front of B2B prospects. And we have a whole process for that. It comes down to, what are you currently ranking for as far as keywords? Which ones should you be focusing on as far as your target personas and what they might be searching? And once we get past, not past, but once we get to that final stages of, all right, these are the recommended keywords based off the volume and things. Let's say it's around, I want to use an example. I want to use an example like dealerships. Can I use that example? I think that might be a good one. Someone who might be owning a dealership, they're searching for certain products, services, solutions. And when they're searching for that, they want to see the results from that. So a lot of times in the US, we really do heavily rely on search engines, and Google is still the most dominant right now. And so if we see on our end that there's a solution around a SaaS for dealerships, has a search volume of 1,000 search users per month, like, think about that. That's 1,000 users every month that you could be getting in front of right now. Now, again, would they convert? Are you going to convert 1,000 users every month? Probably not.
No.
But
right.
that's where messaging comes into play, the whole branding strategy book. And again, this is just one element of your lead generation ecosystem. So Google search is really great for that. Now Google is expanding into these AI Max and Performance Max platforms that some of them have been around for a few years. AI Max is just recently launched, and that's where it's going to retroactively just move text and things from your website in front of users, and it's going to recommend keywords that you should be bidding on, and they're going to bid on keywords that you didn't even tell them to bid on. So in that process, you need somebody there watching and making sure that those ads are doing really well. Yes, I would say Google, by far, would be the place you should start getting those campaigns started for something like that.
Yeah, and one of the things I love, basically you are advocating for strategy though.
Yeah.
There is no set it and forget it. It's not just, we turn on Google AdWords and it works. There is a specific process to make sure that we are clear that the people, the type of leads that you want are on Google. We know and predict what they're looking for, and then it sets up a digital marketing specialist to be able to then test and optimize and maximize return on investment. There is a system behind even the experimentation of how to get more for your money.
Yeah.
And I think that's so critical. And occasionally there are times when Google AdWords is not right. Culturally, some countries are more receptive and use search more than others, especially paid search. Certain levels of executives or certain types of high skepticism subject matter experts don't believe the paid results, right? And so then even though the keywords might seem really relevant, when we match it to what's a qualified B2B lead, well, not them, right? Because they wouldn't type that in because they're in a different place in their career. There really is strategy that is an absolute game changer for whether or not your media is driving exciting and fast speed to revenue leads, or whether it's just flush down the toilet, and it's a big deal. And we've seen so much of that. And, we've even had clients boomerang, away from us because they thought we were too expensive, and then came back to us a couple months later when they realized all of their results went down, and we were even the ones that set up the campaigns, and they couldn't keep them going without that strategic mindset.
Yeah, and you made a great point about the sort of behavior side of things for a search user, especially in the US. We can typically, for B2B services that are nationwide, you can definitely hit all the entire 50 states if you wanted to. But then we have found that certain states just don't convert.
Yes.
And I'll talk with the CEO, and is psychographics the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say when we kind of look into those different decisions on what we need to to make next steps optimizations. We look at location, and sometimes I have found, even for like an executive search, that certain states are not, or they want to stay, like they're like, oh yeah, I just Utah, I don't get any kind of, like even normally I don't get anything out of it. Makes sense why no one there is converting for whatever reason. So let's go ahead and start taking that out. And to your point about going to run the same type of campaigns, let's say you have a really successful campaign in the US, you think you could probably do this in like Mexico or Canada, wherever it may be. But the search volume is going to be different. The behavior around that, are they using Google or are they using something else? They might be relying on a different system because, like you said, the skepticism of, am I really going to get the results I want, or am I going to be clicking on something spammy? We have like Bing that's out there. There could be just more professionals who are using Bing than they are using Google, depending on where they are, like in location, and depending on what company they're with.
Exactly.
So, again, Google is still the largest search engine platform, so I'm still going to advocate for Google, but there is that. So
100%. So now that brings us from paid search to paid social. And there's a very big difference. Like, this is kind of one of my pet peeves, where people glom all digital marketing into a single lead source. Yeah. No, right? So now we're talking paid social, where we're targeting specific groups. So talk to me a little bit about this.
Yes, that's a great segue into this, because with paid social, let's just take Facebook, for example. There's a lot of those professionals that you're probably trying to reach are on Facebook. They just don't give their title. If they showed interest in this video, they did a search, Google knows that, because Google bought YouTube and now uses that data to get in front of that person, so you can get more personalized with your ads for those specific platforms.
Yep.
So again, Facebook is massive. I don't have the right data, so I'm just gonna say Facebook audience, still massive. LinkedIn, not as massive, but it still has better quality, I guess.
Yeah, and at least it's clear, because they're there for professional reasons. Yeah. And then obviously with YouTube, owned by Google, so also massive. Yeah. But you do have to bring in some assumptions about the type of demographic and why they're there. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to interrupt them, you better have a good hook.
Yes.
But you're right. You brought up something interesting about with targeting, is that as marketers, we don't have access to all the ways algorithms group audiences, right? Like, we can't check all the boxes, but they will, if we do good targeting, they will start to serve our ads to similar audiences, even, and you kind of have to just trust the process and follow the data.
Yes, yeah, and that's where, this is things that we've talked about before. So like with YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, if you give those parameters, right? If, like, for example, if you take Facebook, you can just target someone based off of their title. Yeah. But that audience is going to be small compared to LinkedIn. You can open that up and say, well, I want to focus on those who studied human biology, because they might be doctors. It might be a larger audience. They just don't call themselves doctors. Most likely, the doctors will call themselves doctor on Facebook, maybe. But someone who studied some kind of, or reads a certain book or magazine, Facebook sees those as signals.
Yes.
And that they have been using or looking or consuming that content, and then you can start creating these audiences, and you can test your audiences. You can split your budget and do an audience based off of titles versus interest and you can just go down the list of how many times you want to do that. Same with LinkedIn. You can test by groups, you can test by titles. And I love doing this for some of our clients, and we find that for some reason groups do better than titles, and depending on that image or that ad that we put in front of them. Now, YouTube is an amazing platform. It's still very social, and again, it uses those type of signals, right? Google purchased YouTube, so it's going to use all the data, and most likely, if you have a Gmail, if you signed up for some kind of Google account, it knows a lot about you and what you do currently. So we can see in pretty much all those platforms, but a lot of times on Google, right, demographics, time of day, potentially other things around your demographics, like revenue, like income or whatever it may be. And then also we can see what the content that they were consuming those videos on.
Yeah.
and we can try to get a little more hyper focused on, okay, well, they seem to be really liking to engage on these like music videos or, whatever it may be. You're never really going to hit them all the time on the videos that are around business. They're there
Right.
to consume content,
Exactly.
whatever it may be. So you just want to be in front of them. And it can be a very powerful tool to get in front of those B2B, because they're all humans. They're just like us. Like they want to
Exactly.
get on YouTube and have fun and look at different things. But if they see an ad that's pretty appealing to them and it works towards their business, then why wouldn't they click?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Another one, slower one, but another digital marketing tool that's one to many, SEO. So search engine optimization. For the record, we are not going to get into large language models and AI, although let's go ahead and say that that is developing as its own lead source. It's working for some of our clients. We have a totally separate episode, and we'll have one every single month with the latest on that. But we're just going to glom it all into organic search. I didn't pay to get in front of that person, but they found our content. So a little bit about SEO.
Yeah. So sort of going back to where I was saying that when we do data dive into keywords that your website already ranks for, you might see some congruency with, oh yeah, that's the type of keyword I expected to show up for, but then there's going to be so many others that you just didn't realize it because there's, let's say, 200, 900, 1,000, and you didn't know they existed because Google is, good for you, attaching a bunch of keywords to your website. So when someone goes and searches for something that sounds like it's close to your business, it's going to show it, right? You are Google's client in a sense, right? They're going to try to show you organically in front of the right search queries. So yeah, a lot of times, hey, I thought that source just came randomly from word of mouth, direct. But when you have a CRM and the tracking in place, you're going to see, oh, there's this little thing called organic that was actually from a keyword. A lot of times we can kind of see those in analytics. So we try to just tie back, where that conversion came from. And that's the importance of having your GA for place and all these other things.
Yes, it is.
So we can know exactly where you're winning. But yeah, SEO as a whole, it's still very much dominant on the Google side. Snippets and things like FAQs and videos are really starting to rise. But, with this whole AI search and longer tail keywords, more like phrases and questions are just becoming more dominant.
Speech.
Speech.
Your social media, everything is fair game for SEO now.
Yeah, it is. And again, when you look at the SEO side of things, it can be a really impactful lead gen. It's something that I try to show clients at least every 2 weeks of, look at these free leads you just got from SEO.
Exactly.
A free few phone calls, forums from some of the blogging content and things that we've been going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good point. So one thing I want to bring up to people is everyone always assumes that when a visitor comes to the website, they hit the home page first. No, that is usually not the case unless you're the behemoth in the industry. They usually hit a landing page or a blog page first. And so then the lead generation aspect of it is, can you convert on that page, right? And what is the intention? And then do you need to nurture them? Do you need to change that? Can you heat map it? If you've got a ton of volume there where you're like, wow, what if we just got 1% clicking through or something?
Yeah.
But then you can use a little more complexity to be converting this organic search, because they didn't end up there on accident. And if you've got decent page times, then that's telling you that you're really, and if Google keeps serving you up, they know it's because you're giving people the content that they were actually looking for. So SEO is one. Now, the final one, and I'm going to kind of come back full circle a little bit because we listed this as one-to-one, is direct leads, again, where from an attribution standpoint, it looks like people just showed up at your website. Well, they showed up at your website because they searched something, they saw a blog, they saw your ad, they saw you on social media, and they remembered your name, and eventually they typed it in. And what we see almost across the board is the more lead sources that we are able to build out with a client, the higher their direct goes. And so ironically, direct ends up being a bonus lead source, but it's because now the ecosystem itself is a lead source. And so yes, attribution is there. Yes, we can see a lot. But every so often, people really are typing your name and hello, let's go.
Yes.
You did such a good job that they decided to remember your name, right?
Yeah.
And go to you directly. And so, that's another one that while we listed it in one-to-one, it's also a one-to-many.
Yeah, it is. Very much so one-to-many. You got the returning customers, those who saw your YouTube, your email, and again, it's multiple touch points. They're not ready to buy right now, but eventually we'll see some lead conversions come through from direct and say, oh, looks like y'all did something extra this time around, like a networking event or another email blast, and you'll see those numbers uptick from that.
Exactly. So now I'm going to rapid fire this list, but in a slightly different way for you if you want to recap. And here's why. I want you to be thinking about speed to revenue. There are certain lead sources that create revenue faster, and there are certain lead sources that create revenue slower. Let me be crystal clear. Fast is always great, but it doesn't build a thorough, resilient, long-term, predictable, and sustainable system. So at some point, you have to start adding medium and slow to revenue, because that is how your business scales. Because instead of just saying, how are we going to hit our number this quarter or this year? Now you're starting to be like, oh, now we've got more lead sources and how we're going to hit our number next year and the following. And that's where you gain massive traction. So here we go. Where do you get B2B lead sources from, and when are you going to see results? Okay, fast speed to revenue. Speaking, pay-per-click with buying intent, cold marketing outreach with scraped list. We didn't talk about that one. I don't want to talk about that one. But there are lead generation systems that will work. It's only if you're lucky, but that's besides the point. Paid social, paid search, email, and visibility. So those are typically quick speed to revenue. And one note about email, has to be a warm list. So I am literally referring to clients that have a warm list of previous clients, highly engaged people, 5,000, 10,000, 2,000, and they've never communicated to them via email.
Yeah.
It is shocking how many leads you will get if you simply rewarm your prospect list from the previous year, the previous 6 months, or the customers that trusted you but then fell off. Like, wow.
Yes.
So
re-engagement is top.
we have seen some crazy case studies on this, like almost to the point people wouldn't believe us. So medium speed to revenue. So you're going to see leads, you're predictably going to see leads, but you're not going to see them tomorrow. So what are those lead sources? Webinars, pay-per-click with informational intent, account-based marketing, sometimes that can be fast speed to revenue, but typically not. Some paid social, depending on the kind of marketing funnel that you build, and then certain types of paid search, especially, again, if it's informational. So I think I'm kind of doubling up, but at this point, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep stacking on paid search all the time. I mean, there's something we've also talked about is like with the companies that have built their businesses for 5, 10 plus years, the grind that they went through, the determination, just making sure that this thing works. Like, I'm going to get this business to work. And when they finally do, they reap the rewards. That's essentially what paid search can be for certain industries. I mean, for some, if it's emergency type, they need, like, someone needs that service right now. Typically we see wins in that a lot quicker, right? And it's really hard to dedicate to or commit to that, hey, you're going to get leads week one. It's hard to say that, because if it's a different type of service or industry where they're in research mode, let's say it's a little bit top of the funnel, they don't know where to go find the solution right away. They're going to Google. Yeah. And that's where the messaging and all that comes into play. But we got to give it some time. One of our successful recruiting agency companies that we work with said, we saw results in 3 months, but it also takes them 3 months to close a deal sometimes.
Yes.
It's like they got a lead in May, and they're like, we just got them on a demo finally this month, and it's going to be a big deal once we finalize it. But then they're talking about, well, things are slowing down right now. Well, that's what else are you doing? Like, what other lead gen sources that you got going?
Yes.
When things start to really kind of plummet down or have a bit of a volume deficit, that you got to have those other lead sources and make sure that when things are slowing down, you've got some revenue from other areas.
100%. And then some slow speed to revenue tactics are typically word of mouth, because that is a visibility play, that is momentum and ecosystem. So if you're trying to drive word of mouth, that is reputation and brand management. So I don't love having visibility in here, but it does turn into one, the direct traffic that we were talking about. And then SEO is often slow speed to revenue. Not always, but often. So that's kind of why I'm putting it there. Now, obviously this is not exhaustive, right? There's programmatic. I mean, people can do different types of media spends. They can go to industry publications and buy B2B leads in those ways. But we kind of ran through the most common. And I think at this point, we're somewhere up at 20 different B2B lead sources. So I think we've
100%.
delivered on our promise. But the one of the final things I want to talk about what's not on the list.
Okay.
Social media. Regular old social media and
Yes.
B2B is not on the list for lead generation. Can it impact your ecosystem? Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you were doing social selling, which is hunting, that's selling. Social media is not on the list. And I really need, especially small business B2B companies, to realize your social media is not likely to generate a true sales qualified lead. And then content marketing is not on the list. It's an ecosystem play. And we are talking about webinars as a lead gen, email as a lead gen. We're not talking broad content, thought leadership, articles, right? Like, again, that's an ecosystem play.
Yep.
So I start pushing that into word of mouth and direct, that you're amplifying your lead sources, but it's almost never a lead source unto itself.
I would say even it can be at a certain point of the funnel or in that journey where you just built up your book of business, a bunch of clients, or you're running ads, and you're going to get likes on your pages, followers on LinkedIn, and that's where content and social media come into play, where you're gearing that to them. I've seen it from your LinkedIn, from other CEOs' LinkedIn's, and even some Facebook accounts where they start to generate content on there and start to realize, oh, there's a lot of individuals looking at my newsletter, or I'm getting tons of impressions on this post, that then lead into their analytics. And we track social media analytics too, because it's a big part of it, even though, like you said, it's a small part of it, but it still matters, because most of the time that the individuals that we brought from ads or from email or something came to your social, and now they just watch you all the time.
Social proof, absolutely.
Yep.
And it's a great point. Like, oftentimes social media can funnel them into one of your lead sources.
Yes.
But that's an amplifier. That is not a lead source,
Yeah.
right? That's where attribution just starts losing its reality, and so ecosystem, critically important, but man, build it in the right order. Build lead sources, and then funnel and be intentional about how are you filling those lead sources.
Yeah.
So, Ramsey, I could just keep going on and on with you, but so this was so awesome. Thank you so much. If we missed some, which I'm sure we did, feel free to hit us up in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear your questions and your experiences. And you guys, thank you so much. As always, we are here to serve you. We do believe in meaning and connection and prosperity for all. And so we want you to build resilient, amazing, prosperous businesses, because it's good for us all. So thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button. Definitely engage with us. Onward and upward.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always here. Okay, can we start over? Sorry. I'm always here. I'm here to start. I'm here Monday, Thursday.